Hello guys, today we are going to talk about a script called Rating R5. This is a script that allows us to see a lot of information about our players. This is the homepage of the script. The link will be in the comments. As you can see, everything here is in Japanese. I cannot understand. But the part of the website we need is in English, this one. In these other links, the website's creator wrote about different aspects of Trophy Manager. He discusses many topics, but it's all in Japanese. I had to use a translator to read what was written here. After clicking on the Rating R5 link, you see this page, where you can find different versions of the Rating R5 script. I'm using the latest one. You just have to click and install the script. It's very simple. We can also see here the ID of the Creators Club. However, his club no longer exists in the game. I believe this was the name of his club. I will not try to pronounce it because I know I will say it wrong. You can see it here. If you ever watched this video, man, thank you for creating this script. In case you pass by here, let me know in the comments. Here on this page there is also a frequent asked question page where you can clarify some doubts you had. Here he answers many questions. And also there is a link to the topic in the forum. In it there is a long discussion about the script. Since it was published for the first time in 2018. Now let's analyze what information this script can show us. This is a complex script with a lot of calculations and details involved. Therefore, I will not dive deeper into all the points of it. Otherwise, the video would become too long. But if you want more information about any specific point of the script that may not be clear to you during my explanation, write in the comments and I will reply to the best of my knowledge. Let's start with the left side here, this block. We have 4 skill sums. The 3 first ones show the number of skill points the player has in each area and compare it to the maximum he could have. And then you see this percentage here. For instance, the sum of the tactical skills of this player would be 16 plus 17 plus 16 plus 17, which is equal to 66. The maximum he could have is 20, 20, 20, 20, which is a total of 80. If you divide 66 by 80, you get 83%, which is here. Understand? If you want to know more about the skills belonging to each of these areas, check the playlist about players' development. It's in the cards. Then we have the total number of skills he has, and this other number here. This is called remainder, and it is supposed to represent the sum of the decimals he has in his skills. On the screen, you can only see the full skill points, but each of these skills has decimals in it. The script calculates the number of skill points the player is supposed to have based on his skill index, including decimals. Then it subtracts this sum of skills with full points that you see on the screen. The remaining amount is what you see here as a remainder. After that, you have the finishing type. This shows how well the player can finish through each of these finishing types. I will not go into details of it because there are too many calculations involved. Even I couldn't understand them so much. It would require some time to analyze the code of the script to have a better understanding. The same thing applies to the set pieces section. The higher these numbers are, the more suitable the player is to take each of these set pieces types. In the end, you have again the skill areas classified in a 1 to 6 star scale and the capacity of the player to assist, to defend, and to finish in the same scale 1 to 6. In the middle, we have this RERAC B, which approximately corresponds to the recommendation of the player, but in a different scale with more decimal digits. And the rating R5, which is the main feature of this script. The rating R5 is similar to the recommendation, but it gives different weights to each skill, focusing more on the primary skills of the players. Also, the rating R5 considers the skills of the player with the routine effect applied, something that the recommendation doesn't do. Then we have the season TI and the year TI average. The season TI is the average of the TIs, the training intensities the player presented during the season. For example, in his case, it's 0. We are in the second week of season 81. We had two trainings so far. If I go to his graph, I will see that last one was -1 and the other one was 1. So the average is 0. That's why you see here 0. Okay, and 2 is the number of trainings. And the ERTI average, this will not always be here. Whenever we open the profile of a player using this script, the data at this age is stored here. Okay, I open the profile of this player many times for some reason. Then I have all this data stored. I just have to open and the data will be stored. If I have at least 2 in the current year of the age of the player, in his case now he's 29 years old. If I have at least 2 29s here, this year TI average will be calculated. Okay, the more you have that year, the more accurate the average will be. If you have only one or none, then you'll not see this field here. All this data is stored here. If I click, I can see, for example, when he was at this age, his data was this. I can even add to compare to other ones, like this. I don't know if there is a maximum number of fields I can put here, but I can just go adding. Okay, then I can remove later. On the right side, we have these 4 financial items. This is a value calculated by the script based on the skills, age, routine, and other factors of the player. It's very relative, especially for young players. So I would suggest you not to focus much on that and define the player's price based on your experience and on what you see in the market. This other value follows the same idea, but it includes the player's hidden skills in the calculation. In my case, I have his hidden skills revealed, so this value will appear. If I don't have the hidden skills, it will not be here. You also have the maximum selling price and the sell to agent price, which are self-explanatory, I believe. Back to the middle, we have the skills between parentheses. In the past, in one of the videos about scripts, when I referred to them, I said that they seem to be wrong, but actually they aren't. I just didn't understand these numbers back then. Now, after doing enough research for this video, I realized how to understand these numbers. They are obtained by taking the skill plus the routine effect plus the remainder distributed to all skills that are less than 20. For example, for his technique, we would take 18 plus the remainder, which is 5.7, divided by 13. Not 14, we know he has 14 skills, but we divide by 13 because he has one skill with 20 already. We divide the remainder only by the skills which are not 20. 5.7 divided by 13 is equal to 0.44 plus the routine effect. In this case, it would be 2.49. The total would be 18 plus 0.44 plus 2.49, which gives us 20.93. So these values are correct, based on the reasoning of the creator. The same applies to all skills, but if it is stamina, you don't use the routine effect, as it does not interfere in the stamina. If the player has reached 20 in a skill, you don't consider the remainder addition. That's why you see that all of his skills increase 2.93, except for stamina and set pieces, which increase 0.44 and 2.49 respectively. If you want to better understand how the routine effect works, check this video in the cards. We also have these extra numbers for the hidden skills. Without the script, you can only see these numbers between parentheses when you put the cursor on their names. With the script, these numbers are already here, making your life more practical. But this is a pro feature, so you can only see this if you have paid to review the hidden skills of the player. Still in the middle, we have these other items that I will not go into detail. Let's just quickly pass through each one. They involve complex calculations and considerations inside the code of the script. But if you want to know more about any of them, ask in the comments and I can tell you what I know, which is not everything. First, we can see his rating R5 for each of his position. He has dual position. We see here the rating R5, and if we calculate in detail, we can see a detailed calculation of it. Okay? Again, it involves considerations of the creator inside the script, which I will not go through now. And down here, we can also see the stamina effect. We can see what would be his decrease in R5 at 65, at 75, at 90, at 85, and 95, according to the stamina effect, okay? With the stamina he has, which in this case is 19. If you want to know more about the stamina effect, which is a very important point in the game, check the video you see in the cards. Continuing, we have his rating R5 for all positions, also his recommendation, not considering the adaptability, as it's written here. According to his adaptability, it can be lower or higher. He has 19 in adaptability, so for him, this will decrease just a very little bit. Okay, we have also the rating R5 according to the attacking style. Then you see his rating R5 evaluating his capacity to assist, to defend, and to finish for each situation. Then you have this summary of rating R5s for all positions. And you see that they don't match here. Like, for example, it only match in his favorite positions. Like for central defender, it is the same here. And for this other favorite position is the same here. Okay. For all the others, in this summary here, it's lower than here. Like for striker, you see the difference. Then I didn't see it written anywhere, but I think in this table the adaptability is applied. That's why it decreased a bit, because his adaptability is 19, not 20. Then his rating R5 will decrease a bit. So I'm assuming that this table considers the rating R5s with the adaptability applied. If you click in any of these numbers, you can see more details. Okay, according to the attacking style, okay, and other information. You can even compare, like if I select more than one, I see all of them at the same time. If you click again, they disappear. And the last point you have here is the captaincy. If that's how it's pronounced, I think so. Captaincy. This evaluates how good this player is to be a captain. They have two methods because there is no agreement in the community regarding these aspects. Both methods consider that the leadership is the most important skill for the captains. But, as we saw in previous videos, the captain also needs to have good professionalism, high routine, and low aggression. But you don't know how these other three skills interfere, which ones are more important or not. This method considers that the professionalism is the second most important, after leadership. This other method considers that routine and aggression that are more determinant to the captaincy than professionalism. That's why you have these two. Okay? And these levels, it's because the script doesn't take into consideration your scout report because it cannot know whether, for example, here this scout says this. It cannot know whether the scout is able to say this or not. It depends on the scout's skills. Then they have all of this. You should consider these numbers based on the leadership level of your player. You put a scout that is able to tell you what the leadership level is. Then if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you get the final number here. Okay, according to the method you want to use. If you want to understand more about this, check a video I have about scouts. I cannot add more cards, I used the maximum already for this video, but just go to the search bar and type Trophy Manager Tip Scout. You'll find a video about scouts. Then you should know which skill the scout should have to give you the correct leadership. Finally, back to the left side, we have these buttons through which we can remove some features of the script in case you don't want to see so much data on your screen. For example, let's remove the captaincy, then I have to reload the page. Now I don't see the captain evaluation at the bottom, see? I can remove more things. If I want to remove the opposition rating, for example, I always have to reload the page. Now I don't see. I'm not sure about what was removed here, but there should be something missing. Okay, one last example. This one, for example. Okay, then I don't see the R5 by attacking style anymore. And then you can put them back if you want. That's all for this video, guys. If you have questions, write them down below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. See you soon.